We've got love, power. It's the greatest power of them all. We've got love, power, and together we can fall. One word, 4 letters, one 4-letter word. The simplicity of its sound masking its power, pure, potent. If we look beyond the physical veil, use our spiritual vision, which denies and defies our leanings towards human short-sightedness, we will see. See, like Neytiri in Avatar when she said to her father, I see you. See beyond the physical, beyond flesh, beyond man-made, ardently reinforced separations, labels, boxes, and bias. I see you, my sister, my brother. The divine in me sees, acknowledges, celebrates the divine in you. I am you, you are me, we are one, inseparable, intimately linked by love. Love is not a thing. Love is the thing, all-powerful, the ultimate. Love, my people, is the final frontier. No need for the ensign to make it so. No need for Scotty to beam us up, baby. We are already here. Baby love, we're there. I see you, my sister, my brother. The divine in me sees, acknowledges, celebrates the divine in you. I am you, you are me. We are one, inseparable, intimately linked by love. Ubuntu, I am because we are. Here's the thing, Mother, Father, everything, God is everywhere, evenly present. And since God is love, love is also everywhere, evenly present. Love is above us, below us, all around us, and more importantly, in us. We are love, cut from its wondrous fabric. We are love walking. We are inextricably connected, and in our connection, this love connection, there is immense power, light, healing, transformation, joy. I see you, my sister, my brother. The divine in me sees, acknowledges, celebrates the divine in you. I am you, you are me. We are one, inseparable, intimately linked by love. But who are we? Why are we here? We are here for greatness, for love, to love. Divine love is our birthright. Even when we seem to stand as one, we are many. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors who went through inhumane atrocities, sanctioned deprivation, exclusion. Despite the intentions of the enforcers, they survived, endured, so we could be here. So my question to you is, what are you doing with your survival? I'm going to ask again for the folks in the back, what are you doing with your survival? Are you showing up in your life and in the world? Are you loving yourself? Whitney and George Benson before her sang to us about it, the greatest love of all. What are we doing with our survival? Time to stop paying lip service to our lives. No more sleepwalking. Time to really be woke. Bob Marley chanted about one love, calling on us to get together and feel all right. One love, one heart. Oh, I see you, my sister, my brother. The divine in me sees, acknowledges, celebrates the divine in you. I am you, you are me. We are one, inseparable, intimately linked by love, the love that makes us one.
The boys found a space from which to launch their kites. Daniel held his kite close to the compass to prepare to send it up. A few people came over to check it out. "Wait," Fat Boy shouted. "You paper your kite with plastic? You sure that go fly?" "How you mean?" Daniel replied with a sneer. "Wait and you go see." Daniel heaved his yellow, green and black kite into the air. It caught the wind immediately, and with a heavy buzzing gained altitude rapidly. A pair of purple cloth tails 18 feet long unfurled below it. Fat Boy and other spectators cheered. Everybody loves a singing kite. Daniel continued to let out his nylon twine. He debated whether he should slap the kite out to the sea. "Whoa, Danny," Elisha exclaimed. "Like you wanted to reach Jacadam Island? I want to see who will help you ball up all that twine when you're ready to go home," Elijah said, grinning. "Nah, man," Daniel said. He stopped slacking out the twine. That good enough. The kite was now a shiny speck hanging in the sky somewhere over the Bogles beach. The string pulled taut in Daniel's hand, and his small biceps contracted as he controlled the flying toy. "Copai, you have your belly," Fat Boy called out from a few feet away as he flew his own kite. "I see you put a pulling compass on your thing." His kite wasn't as far away as Daniel's, but it had climbed much higher. Just below the boys' spot on the hill, some little girls had launched flex kites. Ruth flew a small flexi that was covered with orange, black, and green delicate paper. She seemed about to cry. Elisha stuck his baller into a deep crack in the dry earth, then walked down to her. "Ruthie kite is a dummy," Elijah said, frowning. Elijah and Daniel watched as Elisha reeled in his sister's silent kite. After inspecting it for a few seconds, he called out to a boy to bring him some sticky cherry. "I'm making a new singer," Elisha shouted up the hill. He installed a new thin strip of paper behind the kite's nose, then returned the kite to Ruth so she could put it up again. A high-pitched whine filled the mountaintop as her kite became the latest flying craft to take to the Bogle sky. The elated girl skipped in the air and gave her big brother a grateful high five. "Don't slack out too much, he said to her. "Ayo, make room for a real kite," a fair-skinned man with a crew of 3 shouted. They carried a massive kite covered with white paper. A red star adorned the center of the white. Elijah Stoops. "Beke really likes this." Beke practically ordered people to clear a path so that he and his team could launch their contraption. The wood-framed kite was over 8 feet tall and about 6 feet wide. The men had used pants legs joined together for the tail. Elisha stared at Beke and his crew. He said, "Beke, you go damage people with that kite. Why you ain't going belly and fly that?" Beke stared at Elisha scornfully. "Little boy, know your place. Who you think you're talking to?" Elisha shook his head. He went up to Daniel. "'Cause watch them men with your kite. They like to use their kite to take down people on. And with this strong wind, I ain't think they have enough tail," Elijah commented. "True," Daniel agreed. "If that kite boots somebody, that person dead." There was no higher ground to use as a base, so the boys, along with everyone else on the hill, would have to wait and react to Beke's tactics with his behemoth. Beke's first attempt to launch his kite proved disastrous. His 3 henchmen heaved the kite from lower down the hill, while Beke stood just across.
So I'm going to read to you from A Christmas Haunting. Peanut left her friends and headed for the supermarket. Her mother had assigned her the task of getting the sorrel to make the traditional Christmas drink. Her eldest brother Sebastian would make the trip tomorrow, Christmas Eve, to buy the local bread and black pudding. Peanut had planned to go with him to the south of the island. A pudding run was always fun, even more so at Christmas time. Chatting with the butcher and the black pudding chef was always enjoyable. Simeon and Simon had already collected the ham, pork, and beef, while Samantha, the youngest, was in charge of the ginger beer. Everyone seemed to be on track except Peanut. Once again, the supermarket shelf was bare. and so Plan B was put into effect. With 2 days left, she had better get that sorrel, so she headed for the market. The 100-plus-year-old building would be recognized by any vendor from the past. It had changed very little, if at all. The constant hum of people talking and laughing was the soundtrack of the market, as were the voices of vendors calling to people to stop and buy. Balawo, $5. Bude good. Ripe mango. Get your ripe mango. My lady, you don't want a ripe mango? Peanut walked past them all, her eyes like a military radar scanning the landscape for the elusive sorrel. It was a sunny day. It was a beautiful day. The kind of day that allowed people to spread their wares around the grounds of the market. It was all there. Mangoes and cashew nuts, watercress and celery, yams and peppers. The way a market was meant to be, and so seldom ever is. This day was the kind of day that brought out the tourists to mingle and buy. The kind of day where every scene was a photograph. There were days when the rains did come. When that happened, the market was an awful pigsty of a place to be. Hurricane Thomas and the Christmas Eve trough were 2 such end-of-year rain events that St. Lucians would not soon forget. But not this day. Today it was a classic sunny day, the type of day the tourism authority prayed for and then advertised. As Peanut entered the compound, the smells of spices and meats and herbs filled her senses. The odor of fish and meat and fruits all mingled together, but it was the spices that really flavored the air. Every inhalation was a mixture of nutmeg, cinnamon, ginger, and related spices. You named it, the Castries market reeked of it. It wasn't by accident that the market was ranked number 3 in the world. She picked her way through all of this. The market seemed as devoid of the sorrel as any other place she had tried. This was frustrating. Still she searched. She really did not want to be the only one of the James children not to have accomplished her task. Finally, she spotted a woman in the object of her desire. How much for the sorrel? Peanut inquired. $10 a pack, came the outrageous quote. Peanut had expected this. It was 2 days to Christmas. Sorrel was scarce, so it had become a seller's market. That's a $5 pack. You don't want it? Fine. The vendor stood her ground. The teen switched to Creole, the real language of the market, something she should have done from the start. Est-ce que garder enceinte pour? Ça c'est yon foule pour $5, was her saucy retort. Do I look pregnant to you? That's a $5 pack. Oh, pontier, ou c'est un Saint-Licien. Ti fi moins pour $5. The eyes of the vendor bulged. Oh my God, you're a Lucian. For you, my girl, $5. Me vle toi. With a mental shake of her head, Peanut peeled the $5 bills from her wallet to pay the 3 parcels that she had ordered. She did a double take. Usually the notes of the Eastern Caribbean dollar carried the image of the British monarch. Yet for a split second, the money seemed to carry the images of Daddy Max, Grandpa Joe, and Mr. Lucas. She closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, the images were gone. You okay? The woman asked. Yes. With the transaction completed, Peanut made her way through the sea of humanity that always occupied the market and headed home. She had a party to prepare for.
October. Not even deep into autumn, but the outside temperature was close to freezing, and the wind was shuffling dirt and leaves everywhere. Stepping out of his lift and out through the main doors of his block of flats, Joe sniffed the cold air, then turned his face away from the stench of sour food coming from the huge bins to his left. Joe was no fan of the cold. The shivering, the runny nose, the thing got right inside of your bones. He shuddered, adjusting his scarf to make sure it covered more of the back of his head and fitted tighter around his neck. Already he couldn't wait to get back inside, but buying his daily newspaper at 7 in the morning had become part of his ritual. Gave him a reason for getting dressed. Today he needed to get fresh milk, sugar as well, for the coffee he'd need when he gets back inside. When he got back inside. Out of the entrance and into the street, Joe pushed down on his trilby and lowered his head to avoid a head-on with the flying bits in the air, then shoved his hands into his pockets. A force stopped him in his tracks. An arm was around his neck, pressing against his windpipe. He struggled to breathe. "Who?" He tried to speak, but the pressure on his neck got tighter. "Shut it, old man," the person behind him said. His voice vicious, direct, and so close Joe felt hot breath touch his ear. "Don't say a word." Joe was being dragged backwards on his heels down the side alley that drunks and the like used as a toilet. "What did—" he started. "Keep your mouth quiet or you'll be meeting your maker." What do you think you're doing? Let me—" Joe said loudly. "What did I tell you?" the voice said. Something like a fist was pressing into Joe's side, into his back. Joe turned to get a glimpse of his attacker. The fire in the honey-coloured eyes took Joe by surprise. For a moment he forgot about the imminent danger he was in. He wasn't in a pissy alley headlocked by a stranger, with too much strength for this old Joe to match. He was somewhere else, 40 years into his past, on the top deck of a ship making its way to England. The man tackling him wasn't a stranger either. It was a rival, Ian. "Keep moving," the voice said. "He's him or me," Joe told himself, and jabbed his attacker with his bony elbow, hoping to destabilise him. "I said—" The sharp burn from a thrust in Joe's side sent his thoughts crashing into pain. Raw, stinging, scorching pain. He was falling, voices mumbling, feet were running. A warmth ran down his right side. He was bleeding.
My name is Dharmbodh Westmaas. Here I am at 75 years old, finished the autobiography of my life. To me, it is a beautiful experience to revise my whole life and to express it again in the form of words. I had a bit of difficulty because of having cataracts, so I couldn't write in the normal way that you're supposed to write in. So I devised a method of writing through using the Wright sheet and using a felt pen. My brother John is now going to introduce you to the glimpses of a mystical misfit.
Once I completed my stint in the occupational therapy department, I did my practical examinations and was successful. Officially, I had become a state-enrolled psychiatric nurse, eligible to practice in the United Kingdom. It was customary for nurses upon graduation to give 1 month's service to the hospital where they were trained before moving on. It came as a big surprise to me when another young state-registered psychiatric nurse, or SRN, and I were asked to be in charge of about 10 long-term patients on a week's holiday at a seaside resort in Hastings. At first, I thought it was too much for us. It was reassuring when we heard from administration that the patients were manageable. Further, they told us that all arrangements would be in place to ensure that things went smoothly. I had known most of the patients chosen for the outing. There was Jim, Eddie, and a few others whose names I cannot recall. As we boarded the coach, I remember thinking that one had to be very perceptive to detect that this was not the average man on the street, but was a group of mentally ill patients with their nurses. On the way, we stopped at an off-road motorway services complex where lunch was pre-arranged. We soon settled down to eat. Everything was fine until we were finished eating. Jim Leach was nowhere to be found. We looked just about everywhere, but there was no sign of him. I was getting worried. I went to the area with the toilets. "Jim! Jim!" I called out, to no avail. I noticed that all the toilets that were previously occupied were now empty except for one. Jim must be in there, I thought. I kept knocking on the door and calling. There was still no response. I then hastened to the person on duty in the manager's office to explain what had happened. I wanted permission to jump over the wall to open the door. He agreed without hesitation. I pulled myself up and looked down to see Jim sitting at ease on the toilet seat. I pleaded with him to open the door, but he would not budge. I then jumped in and opened the door. Jim still would not move an inch. My companion had to come in to assist me. We had no alternative but to put our hands under his armpits and lift him from the seat, while at the same time pulling up his trousers. It was a struggle to get him to stand, as Jim objected, shouting, "The hospital administration will never hear the end of this."
Maids. Maids are ordinary persons who know who's who and what's what, who know who's stick rots and who no longer sleep together, who had a miscarriage and whose marriage no longer works. By and large, they keep this knowledge to themselves or tell the flat pillows on the pallets on which they spend so little time, or whisper to their families how not to lose face, how to keep your child or mate, and what's going to be legislated. They rarely share this though. Some dispense it to the wind because they have no contract to rescind and see their families once a year or never dare. They know who needs a physician, who needs a magician, and can refer one. They know whose little son returns from boarding school a man or torn by one. They know who to comfort, whom to give a quick embrace, and whose tears to wipe away, and whose daughter almost ran away, and who was almost bankrupt, till the first daughter married the sucker with the nuclear plant, and who whisper to your child to sleep and sings of love and God and hope to the autistic one that rocks all night. They know who returns from ability beyond with a star and who is being radicalized in the basement and who will probably shoot the principal tomorrow, but no one ever asks.
Street Psalm, a psalm of descent. I peep over the fences, Lord, and see them enter their basements. M14s hang from their shoulders like big necklaces, bouncing on the ammo they wear around their chests like breastplates of righteousness. My aunt, the washerwoman, tells me that the basements are full of years of canned food because they fear extinction. Down there they redact your word and leave us torn pages to believe. I will not ask you to come, because you are everywhere nascent. I will not ask how long or when you will come. I will watch 100 million snowflakes melt on a billion tongues. For you are sick with love for your pale children, and you watch as they skip down from the mount, holding the hems of their long prayer gowns, dainty-like with both hands, Lord. They have left mounds of offerings, tithes, baptismal fonts, good deeds, and kneeling cushions on your altars. Careful not to trip, they lift the white robes high, revealing red satin lining and jackboots. Their ankles are boasted with home ownership and fourth-generation legacies. I lay in the street, face to the side, hands in modern zipped cuffs, not having heard my rights. I see when they return to their yachts and flotillas, tee off, then on parchment they design new monuments to generals returning from the slaughter of your red children. They have taken my peace. I can no longer raise my hand to my brothers. What is the price of a life of ruined brotherhood? Therefore, I ask nothing. I will not ask you to come because you are everywhere evanescent, and you are full of love. And if shadows loom, they are not from you, because you never leave.
My name is Madeline Coopsammy. I was born and raised in Trinidad, but I have lived in Canada and the prairies for the past 53 years. I'm going to read you from my book of poems called Prairie Journey. This is
based on an experience which we have all had living on the prairies and experiencing winter. And it's called Subject to Icing. This is a sign that appears on the highways and the prairies. The ominous sign rears its head as I approach the bridge, distracts me from the task at hand, while my thoughts run on to white-swathed tiers of wedding cakes, with pink-tipped rosebuds subtly peeping, exuding the faint sweet scent of almonds, and memories of children's birthday cakes lovingly smeared with 7-minute icing, or slithery surfaces of simple butter icing come flooding. This is no time for nostalgic thoughts of wedding cakes or celebrations, and so with heart in hand I crossed the bridge, recalling the first time ever this warning had impaled itself upon my consciousness. It was beneath Saskatchewan's never-ending skies in a waterless summer, and while its land and people bled in silence, dismissing, not without some guilt, this untimely roadside marker, in thankfulness, I hurried home to Manitoba, only to find suddenly these warnings here as well. And I preferred it as it was before I took my heart in hand venturing across the bridges, preferred it when I did not know such portents of impending doom existed, liked to think the care was only mine in all my epic journeys across this polar land. And I muse upon the wisdom of these merchants of the signs, who, sitting in their offices, could conceive of such a line as bridge subject to icing. It must have been a man. A woman would have known that it would never do, would only make one wonder about consistency and texture and even, will it ever dry? Bridge subject to icing. And now I'm going to read a little from my book, my novel called The Old Songs. And this scene recalls old-time carnival, not that old-time, but not that far back, but in the 50s. Carnival Tuesday afternoon, and the main character in the book and her sister and their mother are standing around the Queen's Park Savannah, watching the carnival bands come out of the savannah. The savannah, a huge expanse of green sold to the government by a wealthy French family, was a communal meeting place. Horse racing and the annual carnival was celebrated in the savannah. And in the evenings, as cool winds from the adjacent mountains swept across the fields, alleviating the suffocating heat of the day, couples old and young strolled its perimeter. Children ran freely in its environs under parents' watchful eyes. Reigning supreme over the savannah from its western side were 7 large stately mansions, boasting an architecture borrowed from many countries of Europe and from several eras of the past. These many castles, adorned with turrets and towers, each had distinctive crenulated facades. The grandiose structures were the pride of the city and the island, a testament to its colourful past in the days when sugar was king and cocoa, not yet devastated by disease, had enriched the island's coffers. These architectural legacies had been dubbed the Magnificent Seven by the island's Nobel laureate. In his acceptance speech, this son of the island thanked the country of India, the land of his ancestors, and England, the mother country, the land that had given him a home, but failed to mention the island of his birth. One would have thought that he had sprung full-blown from the earth like some demigod, and had not been born on the little Caribbean islands that had nurtured him for his first 17 years.